Hello everyone, welcome back. I want to talk to you guys today about those Confederate statues. The ones that the liberals keep tearing down. I'm very much against it because basically I see that as erasing history. Okay, and regardless of whether, even if it was a statue of the devil, if it was put up by some devil worshipping group, 100 years ago, that has some history attached to it, that statue needs to stay up. Okay, it doesn't matter what it represents. It's part of our history. Okay, so that's how I feel about historical statues. Okay, so I don't care what they represent. If they've been around long enough, and I would certainly call anything that's been around, any statue that's been in place for more than 100 years at this point to be historical, that needs to stay there. Okay, now the argument that the liberals will typically bring up is that it represents an effort to preserve slavery. Okay, and my counter argument to that is that I can accept that perhaps the South fought the Civil War to preserve slavery, but at the same token, it is well documented that the North did not fight the Civil War to end slavery. Okay, the Northern leaders, starting with Abraham Lincoln, on numerous occasions said that this was not a war to end slavery. It was a war specifically to preserve the Union. Okay, and in fact, there were many generals that wrote that if their men, right, their soldiers, believed for one instant that they were fighting to free the slaves, they would lay down their arms. Okay, and I'm not saying that that's good or bad. Okay, but I'm just saying that's how they, what the thinking was at the time. That is historically documented. Okay, so I'm not giving you an opinion on this. I'm just stating what was historically documented. And in fact, we have many letters written by by men that fought in the Civil War. Letters written during the time of the Civil War and letters that they wrote after the Civil War that tells us specifically how they felt. And letters written during the Civil War, I would give more weight to those because those were written, in time, in the period that this was actually happening. And in fact, in some of the letters, these same veterans, when we look at letters that were written 40, 50 years later, we see that over time, people's opinions, the way they think of things, has changed. So even during the course of their lifetime, the victorious North, they put a different spin on things. Like, letters that they wrote 50 years later, started to give it the twist that it was basically to free the slaves when it was not. And by the same token, letters written by Southern soldiers 50 years after the fact, in many cases we see more of an emphasis on the on states' rights. Whereas actually, a lot of the letters written during the Civil War by Southern soldiers also emphasize that because that's what they were told. A lot of the soldiers during the Civil War, most of them didn't own slaves. So in fact, most of the soldiers that were fighting, despite the fact that their leaders, despite the fact that the motivations of their leaders might have been to preserve slavery, what was sold to the soldiers was state sovereignty. Okay, and that's what the soldiers believed that they were fighting for. By contrast, okay, or by comparison, the soldiers in the North, they were basically told that they were fighting to preserve the Union, and that it had absolutely nothing to do with freeing the slaves. Okay, so that's that's what I like to throw in the face of the liberals when they start talking about tearing down the statues and saying that tear it down because basically it represents slavery and oppression. Well, I'll tell them, well, you guys, you really had no interest in freeing the slaves. Okay, you fought that. Not you as in them specifically, but the reason why the North fought that Civil War, okay, and they made it abundantly clear, was to preserve the Union. not to free the slaves, as the Union on many occasions stated itself. So that's my counter argument to tearing down those monuments. Okay, try it out, see how it works for you. Post some comments. I'll talk to you guys next time.